Welcome to this episode of Why Pals Tales from Superyacht Laundry. I apologise in advance. I haven't had my coffee. It's really early for me. But I'm going to attempt to get Erin Pickering's name right this time. Obviously, all fun in the outtakes for this episode. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited about having you on because you are very, very rare. Because what you've gone on to do, I have not interviewed anybody that's done it, that's actually gone into that industry. So we'll talk about it a bit later, but I've always been on the firm belief that nobody ever goes into it after leaving yachting. You have proved me wrong. So I suppose there is hope in a way for ladies if they do envisage going into that side. But we'll get to that bit in the beginning. But yes, I'm super excited about hearing your story because I've been looking for a long time for somebody like you. So thank you very much for being on.
Thank you.
So we always start in the same way. So before we get on to what you're doing, please set the scene. Like, what was Erin up to before the yachting industry, and where did it come? Where did the idea come to go on yachts?
I was working for one of Australia's largest media organisations, and I was an account manager. So I was selling radio, television and digital advertising, and I was doing really well. I was, earning a lot of money, a lot of commissions, and I was quite young. I'd started in that space when I was 20.
Sales is tough. Media sales is pretty intense.
Yeah, it was. And it was also, I was in that man's world and I was walking into boardrooms trying to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of advertising, and people sort of like, who's this kid? What do you know? So that was a real challenge. And I did that for 7 years before a friend was working on a boat and he was saying, you should do it. And I was like, no, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And for 12 months, he kept saying to me, give it a go. I think you'd be really, really good. And I think you would make it to purser status. And I'm like, well, what's a purser?
So were you unhappy with marketing? That was the natural progression from school?
No, I left school and worked for the government where I was living at the time, and I worked there for a couple of years, and I was earning a really good wage at 19. And I looked around the room thinking, oh my God, everyone's so old here. I'm so young. And I was like, what am I doing? So then I actually applied for a job in media as someone's personal assistant, or their it was an account coordinator. And they rang me and they said, we're not giving you the job. And I was like, what do you mean you're not giving me the job? And he said, because you're not going to be happy. You need to do something more. So they didn't give it to me. And then about 6 weeks later, they called me back and they said, we've just let someone go. Would you like to take over her client list? And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I started calling these clients and they were like, go away. So I had a bit of a hard time trying to do that. But media was amazing. Sales was incredible. Again, like you say, it was a really hard role. But I just kind of got to a point where I needed something, and, working Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, you kind of might spend the rest of your life doing that. And I wanted to miss it. I was taking a lot for granted. I booked myself a one-way ticket to Antibes like most people do, and I found a job in 4 days and then spent all my money because the job didn't start for 5 weeks.
So you did your SCCW in Australia?
I did, yes, on the Sunshine Coast, North Queensland.
It's rock hard to get on a boat in Australia. There's not many of them, is there? So I imagine you get all of the yachties coming back that want to be in Australia-ish.
Yeah,
fierce competition.
I would call it boating here. I wouldn't it's not yachting. It's great, but a lot of our stuff's like all day charters, Sydney Harbour, Whitsundays. Nothing's really
beautiful.
Stunning, absolutely stunning.
Absolutely stunning. But I suppose it's quite rough as well. Like, you'd have to be on a boat that's like pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not. So I worked with Australia Immigration. I listened to the podcast. I did it for free. It was volunteer work. And I know that that's against the rules as well. But, you know, I just wanted to get on board a boat to just see. So I did my SCCW in Australia. So we went out. I remember we went out on a day trip as well. I was so sick. Like, because once you get out of Sydney Harbour, it's like, woo-doo, woo-doo. Yeah. Like, even on a good day, like, that's never going to be milky flat ever. No. Because it's quite deep as well. But yeah, no, but Sydney Harbour's very good. It's one of my best walks to work ever. Was walking from Manly to get the ferry, to then get the ferry across to the city. That was an awesome journey to work. So one of my faves. I've got like a little collection.
Love that.
Yeah. So had you travelled much before you went to Antibes? Like, because a lot of Australians don't leave Australia.
No. I had done one overseas trip at 24 years old to the States, and I went to Coachella and took myself to New York, and that was all I'd done. So I was really scared. I honestly thought that it was going to be like an episode of Taken, and I was going to get stolen at Barcelona airport, and I was just like,
as long as it's not a scene at a hostel.
Yeah, I know. And I was spending so much money on private VIP transfers, so I didn't have to catch any public transport because I was so scared.
It is quite funny when it comes to stuff like that, because why I say, obviously, to any European women, you know, Aussies, it's not that they don't want to travel, it's just, you know, their casual 2-week holiday is Bali. It's like 7 hours flight. You know, you've got New Zealand, which is the shortest distance, but it's not easy for you guys to just go on a holiday. Like, it's a long haul flight to us because you are literally at the bottom of the planet.
Yes, we are. It's beautiful down here, though. Come visit.
Yeah, well, no, it is. But you must, like I said, you must be really brave. Do you know what I mean? So to go to European countries, so obviously non-English speaking country as well. Yeah. You know, were your family like worried for you? Did they put like a tracker on you and stuff?
Not really. My dad was like, why are you going overseas? You should have babies and stay home and buy a house. And I'm like, ugh, whatever. And my mum was like, I don't want my kids to not be in the same country as me, but what kind of mum am I if I make you stay here? You know, you've got to go out there. You've got to give everything a go. You've got to see the world. And I'm just one of those people too. I really don't want to get to a point in my life or at the end of my life and be like, oh, I wish I tried that, or I wish I did that, or wonder what that would have been like. So for me, it was just the fire in my belly to just get out there. And, you know, and I told everyone I'd resigned from my job, and I'm like, I'm going to go do yachting. And then I was like, shit, I really got to do
it. I'm committed now. I'm going.
I'll show them. So yeah, I had to keep going, but I was really scared.
So what were your, you know, when you land in France, tired?
Yeah.
What did you feel? Because obviously, you know, your first impressions of Antibes, I don't know. In my head, I always thought it's like the posters, like French Riviera. It's going to be clean and lovely. And, you know, back in the day, parts of Antibes weren't clean and they weren't lovely.
No. And I remember going to my accommodation, and like I said, I was so scared. I got the lady that ran the Airbnb to come and meet me at the bus stop because I just needed someone. I needed company. She took me there, and then I met these beautiful, beautiful women that I was staying with. There was only about 4 of us, and I was in this apartment all by myself until they got home, and it was so noisy, and I was like, oh my God, someone's going to try and break in. Someone's walking up the stairs. And it's like, I saw this weird guy downstairs on his phone. I'm like, oh my God, he's calling his gang members and everything. I was like, I was taking things to a place that I shouldn't have taken them to. And then my first thing, I dropped my bag and I called Caroline from Key Crew, and I was like, I'm here. I just landed. I want a job. And so we met at the Blue Lady, and you know, she met me in person and we had a chat. We'd been in correspondence by email.
Caroline Clark, legend of Antibes.
Yeah, she was so beautiful. And so that felt nice just to kind of ease the nerves. And then I actually found my job myself on one of the Facebook pages about 4 days later, but the start date was 5 weeks away. It was the 1st of May. I landed at the end of March. It was the 1st of May it started.
Oh, you went too early as well. I did that.
Yeah, went way too early.
What rocked up in March, basically just got really good about eating off a baguette and a bottle of wine, basically.
Yeah.
It just survived until...
Standard Antibes diet.
A bit of cheese, a baguette, and a €4 bottle of red, and that'll get you through the day until the weather gets nice, and then you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it at the beach whilst you're looking for a job.
Yeah,
looking for a job.
So after that, I went to grab the girls from my Airbnb, and that's when I was introduced to the hop store, which may they rest in peace.
Hop store. Yeah. The hop store's fun. It is fun at the right time of the night, but the inside just smells like it never smells.
But then you just don't care after the first hour. Like, you're like, oh, this doesn't smell very good, and then you're contributing to the scent, so it just doesn't matter.
You go to the loo and there's no door. Like, okay.
I know. So
lucky if there's any toilet paper. You've got to be in a certain point of the night to go in there. It's
absolutely.
I quite like sitting outside, but inside. What is that funky smell? It's like bleach and vomit and
burger,
whatever else.
Yeah,
and I always used to go. You always get crew members, and they want you to do shots. They was like, let's go hot store, let's do shots. Then you don't remember how you got home.
Guilty. That was me.
Oh dear. So obviously you're embedding yourself in Antibes life, as we all do.
Yeah. Some of the best times of my life.
So, if you could remember.
Yeah, some again.
So what was your first boat?
My first boat was a 35-meter Sunseeker, Zulu, and I was deck stewardess. So I was like, yep, no probs, give me the job, you name it, I'll do it, no probs. And then get there, and the captain hands me a disc sander, and he's like, right, you're going to sand the teak of the whole boat. And I was like, sweet, okay, cool, no worries. Sand it, then Semco it. And I looked like a human tampon for 5 days sanding this goddamn boat. And then I was so
like, glamorous. Love the yachting. Did you message your mate that said it was a good idea, saying, what have you done to me?
I went from stilettos and pencil skirts to bare feet and like a paint suit. And I was like, that's fine. Like my dad raised me, you'd get your hands dirty, do any job, work hard.
Yeah.
And I know how to use fun power tools. And I was so proud of this job. It was like the day before we picked up the guests, and I was so proud of this teak, and I had absolutely no comparison because I've never done it before. I didn't even know what Semco was. And the captain walked outside and was like, looks pretty shit. And I'm like, oh, I thought I did a really good job. And I was like, we'll get a professional to do it. I don't know what I'm doing. So, yeah. And then after 6 weeks with them, the owners were so beautiful. The owners said to the captain, we want to make Erin the chief stewardess. The chief stewardess had to go home. And I said, no, they don't. I don't know what I'm doing. They don't want me to be their chief stewardess. And they were like, yes, we do. I said, guys, I have no idea. Anyway, they were adamant, so I took it on, and I taught myself a lot on YouTube and just was trying to do everything I could. And we had a very successful season. I still receive messages from one of the owners and, how successful that particular season was for him and how much the family loved it. So for me, that was a real win.
Wow, fake it till you make it. Wow.
100%.
I think it's one of those, it's testament to the job. And I think this is because if you're a capable woman, do you know what I mean? You can work well under pressure, think on your feet, you're quite logical, don't mind getting your hands dirty. You can get on and do the job. It's not brain surgery being a stewardess. No. But I think one of the problems I've got with the industry is they just assume because if you are capable, you can make it seem easy and you can learn it, means it is easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like they just assume that anybody can do it and anybody can learn it. Well, yeah, they could, but you do have to be a certain type of woman to like pull that off with any kind of success. And I think the industry kind of does us a bit of a disservice, because basically I think we're all incredible and we can make it work. But that doesn't mean that's the way it should be.
No, I know. I hear you. And it's like, you know, but it goes the same both ways. Like I used to have stewardesses that are like, oh, I'd love to be outside. Like, look at the boys just, you know, playing with water and just having the best time out in the sun. And I'm like, well, they'd probably really like to be in here in air conditioning. And they're not. Like, if you guys, I used to, on one boat, I used to say, come on, inside, outside, off you go, and trade places, so that you can understand why they get so angry when you would keep wearing your shoes on deck when you come back from a night out. So, you know, and I completely agree. I think if you can do really well at it and make it look seamless, like that's a real talent.
It is a real talent, but an underestimated one, to be honest. I do think that. So what was the love like? So you're in the role, obviously you kind of, apart from obviously your teak skills, like what did you love and what did you hate in the beginning? You know, can you say what resonated the most? Like basically being put in a coffin to sleep, or...
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing that really bothered me was the way that you were looked at because you were green to that industry, that you didn't know anything else about life. And I've just, you know, I had just come from a corporate world, boardrooms, selling hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars worth of advertising to big company CEOs, GMs, you know, you name it. And I did it really well. Just because I'm coming in as a green stewardess, you know, in my mid-20s, it doesn't mean I don't know anything else about life and I'm stupid. And that was a real stigma that really drove me crazy, because I would get talked down to by engineers, captains, chefs, you know, what do you know? Like, you're green. And I'm like, I'm green at this, but I'm not green at life.
That's true. That's a really good point, actually. You know, a lot of women have had a lot of experience. You know, we're not all the fresh 19, 20-year-olds, you know.
And I had the right attitude. I was like, hey, I'm not coming in here pretending like I know everything. I'm telling you I don't, and I'm willing to learn. So just teach me, and you only have to tell me once. You don't have to tell me multiple times. I'm a good listener. I'm a fast learner. And that's where I really dug my heels in on. And I clashed with some people, but I didn't care, because I was like, I'm not asking anything that's too much. I'm telling you to get back off and see me for the smart, intelligent person that I am.
I think it says a lot about your character and your parents, because also, you know, you have to have that belief in yourself to get into the industry, I think, and make it work. You know, you have to believe in your own capabilities, and just to do, like, obviously, you know, they did an assessment of you and said you could be chief stew. You know, you were probably putting yourself down. If you sat down and thought about what you needed to do and what the job was, you knew that you could do it. Yeah, you just needed a bit of a nudge. It's a big testament to character, I think. You know, for the women that. I've got some stuff in the pipeline that we will talk about in the next few months, because I want to know if we're all a very similar type of person. Yeah. You know, there's got to be a trait, whether we're all lunatics. They just want to pack our bag, leave everything that we've known, and then go to an industry where you're going to be treated like an imbecile in the beginning. Why you would want to do that, I don't know. But anyway. It would be really, I'm really intrigued to see, because you just, you know, that's that can-do attitude. Do you think you got that from your parents?
They've definitely played a part in that. I think it was just, I was born with it, because as I made my first $280 when I was 3 by selling tickets to a school concert that was never even going to happen. So my mum was like, you've always been an entrepreneur, or you've always wanted something and you just make things happen.
That was cool.
So, but like, even people would say to mum, you know, oh, Erin's so lucky. Look at her over there in Europe. And mum's like, she's not lucky. She made that. She went and got that. No one knocked on our front door and said, here's a job on a boat in Europe and here's your plane ticket. I went and got it. I was like, I'm going to give this a go. So I don't like it when people say that about anyone doing anything great. It's like everybody has a choice, and you either choose to live your life in the comfortable lane, or you choose to go out there and do something different and get uncomfortable and rip in and have a crack.
Yeah. And it is a lot of fun. So if you can summarize best boats, best locations, what were your highlights before we get into why you got fed up?
I think, fed up. I think, do you know, the best thing that I never thought, I left thinking I would learn a lot about the world and other people. And I learned so much about myself and really confronting things as well. A lot of growth. I made a lot of mistakes. I hurt people. I upset people in certain times because I was young and growing and learning, and especially when there's alcohol involved, you do silly things. And so there were some
hearts all over.
Oh,
she broke a heart in every port.
By a French man.
Oh dear.
They're dangerous, let me tell you. I think that was real. And again, being on boats, one of my boats, 82 meters, we had 28 crew, 34 on payroll, 28 on board. And I've never felt more alone in my entire life. Really, I had some really, really, really dark days. And I was the only one responsible for allowing myself to get into those holes, but I was the only one that could get myself out of them. And having to really look deep within and look at myself and realize that I had qualities that I wasn't liking, and I had to shift that and change, really look at who I wanted to be, the type of friend, employee, person moving forward. And that was, I learned so much about myself.
Well, there's nowhere to hide, like there is a part of your character that you obviously, probably deep down there's it's not great. But on board, there's nowhere to hide. So if it's, that'll be the one that comes to the forefront, and, you just get smacked in the face to deal with it until you either get off, or you just have to deal with it because it will just be a reoccurring problem. And I can with the loneliness on board, which sounds really bizarre because you're so close to everybody.
Yeah.
And then you just don't,
But they're beautiful people. And sometimes you work with amazing crew members, and other times there's, maybe you're not happy within the crew makeup, and that's okay, and that happens. But for me, there was just, again, those confronting moments for me that I couldn't escape from. And also it's like, if you work with someone in an office job and they go home at 5 o'clock, there's going to be things about them that you don't see because they're at home in their own house. Whereas on a boat, at dinner table, at the breakfast table, there they are again. So you see the best and the worst of everybody. And those lonely moments when I was just feeling like I had no one, it's because those people aren't my people. They're still lovely people, but they're not the people that I would choose to go to something or confide in or really open up to. And especially being an Australian, wanting to speak to someone that I love or care about, it could be the middle of the night for them. So the time zone really played a part in that, and just really going, no one here is really my person. So that's where the loneliness.
Could you say that, you can get obviously because it's such an intense experience on board, if you are on a boat or a position, where it's not feeling right, do you know what I mean? And then because it's so close and so all-encompassing, that's when you want to reach out to find your anchor again. Do you know what I mean? If you, like you said, because you can't reach out to somebody who knows the true you and not what's going on at work, because you're trying to differentiate what's work and what's you. Are you having a problem, or is it the boat problem or whatever? And not being able to reach out to individuals when you need it most. Obviously, that's why I suppose mental health is such a big thing at the moment.
Yeah. It's also, I think, too, it's really nerve-wracking if you do speak to anyone on board and you feel like you're unveiling a part of you that is really private, and then you worry about the judgment, or, they're going to go and tell everybody, or they're going to say this, or they're not going to like me. And it's just this, a lot of it, we do it to ourselves a lot of the time, but it's just that underlying fear of saying, oh my God, what if they know the real me, or what if they know that I did this, or I stuffed up, or it's just, So, people do keep a lot in, which they shouldn't. You should feel like there's that person you can talk to, or there's that lifeline or something that you can go to. But yeah, I mean, look, it was the best 9 years of my life, near 9 years. And I would not change a thing. I'm so proud of what I did in the industry, how hard I worked, my reputation, and I absolutely loved it. I left on a high, which was also really hard to do. But I'd much rather that than me getting to a point where I just hated it and I didn't want to do it anymore, because I wanted.
That says a lot about your character as well, because, I was the same thing. Like, I'd worked for chief stewards that were holding on. Do you know what I mean? They were holding on. They didn't want to get off because they didn't have a plan. They didn't know what to do next. They tried, come back, did the bounce kind of thing. And I don't know whether, there is a lot. You kind of want to finish the chapter in a nice way. You know? You don't want to get to the point where you hate it and hate everybody and get bitter.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've seen that, and I didn't want to become that person. And there were moments where I did feel like that trait had started to sort of show, and I was like, oh no, okay, I think this is a little sign. I don't want to become the cranky purser, the bossy, bitchy purser. And that was really important to me, that you can work so hard for so long and have the most incredible reputation, and you can undo it in 30 seconds. And I was like, nah, I'm not going down that path. So yeah, it was time.
What's your sum up? So all of these girls that are on board, and they might be chief steward already, tell us about being a purser, the pros, the cons, whether it's even worth it. Do you know what I mean? Because it'd be really nice, you what size boat were you a purser on?
So I started purser on a 50 metre and I finished on 110. Right. Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I would do it again, like oddly, but I think for me, I've actually recently been receiving a lot of messages from women in the industry saying, oh, I'm thinking about doing my purser course, and I really don't think this is for me forever, and so I'm going to do a purser course so then I can do certain things land-based. And I go, hang on a second, do you want to be a purser? Why? Tell me what it is that you think the purser role can do for you. And I think there is a really large misconception about, well, if I become a purser, that gives me all of the skills that I can then take home, and then I can do, my own business and this and that. And don't get me wrong, there will be things that would teach you those traits. But if you're looking beyond yachting, then really dive into what skills you need for the next stage that you want to do, and hone in on that, like business courses online, different things that can take you where you want to go in the long run. Being a purser it's an amazing role. And for me, I took on more of that mother hen kind of, come on in, I'll give you a big hug, I'm going to look after you.
Come in and have a whinge.
I mean, yeah, well, one of my friends, he called me agony aunt. He's like, oh, agony aunt, who's coming in today? What are they saying? But for me, it's a lonely job. It is a lonely job. It's one of those, I'm a part of a crew for sure, and it's definitely a family, but you don't have someone that you can always delegate to when things are really, really busy, or when you're really tired, or if you're not feeling well on one particular day. You've still got so many deadlines, and crew need to be paid and all that sort of stuff. And, people would always offer, oh, can I help? Can I help? And the only person that can really help you is the captain. And very rarely I would say, actually, yeah, here's a to-do list. Can you tick that off for me? So it was lovely to know that people were there to support you, but people can't help because you've got all this confidential information that the other crew can't see. So, it's a lonely gig. It really is.
Do you think it's, I suppose trying to find positive? I mean, I didn't think that I would probably be any good at being a purser, to be honest. But it's the beginning of the isolation. Like the purser role is this, it could be, I suppose in some ways, the start of the separation from crew life, which I suppose could be a benefit in some respects, because you're already starting to feel that you're not part of necessarily like the intense bit. So you're kind of already, it's a step out, but not out enough.
Yeah, and you take on a different role. I mean, I have always been able to have friendships with crew and a lovely, working relationship with them as well. But it's still natural where you're so close with the captain that they want to still go and have their nights out and not feel like, ooh, the purser's watching. Even though like I got along with a lot of them and we would go and have fun together, but there's still some things that they don't want me to see just in case it got back to the captain, or I was privy to certain things that, some of the gossip that people didn't want heard and things like that, which I get. And I think in any role, in any leadership role, if you start to feel really strange about that dynamic, look within, because there's something going on inside that's making you feel uneasy or insecure about not being invited to certain things. It's not them. But yeah, I think that can bother people because you don't have the team. And I missed that. I missed mentoring stewardesses and teaching them things and training them and having a really amazing morale within one particular department. I missed that.
Yeah, it's a difficult role. I mean, there's not that many of you. That's one of the things. Like, countless girls are doing purser courses, but there aren't that many positions at purser level. And also with the onshoring, there's a lot of remote pursers now. The captain just sends it ashore. Do you see the role being probably more onshore than off in the future with the way things are going? Or is there always, do you think it probably will always be a presence on board to take the weight off the captain?
I think so. And I also think from a guest experience perspective, there's nothing better for them to have a great person on board that just elevates the care, the attention, that personal touch of, I've got you, I can do that for you, I can look after that, here's an itinerary of, it's just, that goes such a long way for a guest trip, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It is an interesting one. So can you remember a moment where you're like, I don't know whether I want to do this anymore? Did you get a sinking feeling? Excuse the pun.
I like that.
Did you get a sinking feeling? You're like, I want to throw myself overboard. That person just keeps coming in my office whinging about life.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, we all have, it's a little bit like the sales roller coaster of, I'm on the high, I'm feeling so good, I love my job, I'm king of the world, to just like, I hate this shit, I want to get out of here, and he's an idiot and she's a cow and all that sort of stuff. But I think for me, it was a real, I knew that it wasn't forever for me. I would like to have a family at one point too. So it was important that I chose a time to come home for me to allow for that emotional change in my life and come home, settle. I didn't know if I came home that I was just going to be absolutely miserable and miss going back on a boat so much so that I was like, actually, I'm not ready yet. So I needed to allow for that space and, that shift in missing out on that beautiful big salary coming in when I was at home for 2 months of the year. But yeah, there was, after I got married, it started to feel more and more like it was going to be the right time soon for me to go home. My husband still is working on boats as a chief officer, and so he'll keep doing that for a little while, and he loves what he does. But yeah, every time I got home, the feeling of going back to work was becoming stronger and stronger. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, and it is, you've got to spend some time transitioning. That's an intense roller coaster as it is. And you add a baby into the mix, it's just, you know what I mean? You're going through so many sets of emotions all at the same time. I don't recommend it. So if you can leave earlier, do one thing, then do the next thing.
Yeah.
But, knowing what we're like, like we said at the beginning, you just pack your bag and you clear off and you're like, oh, I'll just make the best of it. So I think that's probably why a lot of girls just jump off.
Yeah.
Did you have any ideas about what, so, you've kind of got an idea of maybe a timeline, but what were you going to do? Like, what did you have any ideas about what you wanted to do?
I knew I've always wanted to work for myself and create my own company. And I think for me, over the years, witnessing a lot of different leadership styles, some amazing, some terrible, and getting more and more frustrated that there were still these leaders out there and witnessing some of it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? So to have a company that really harnessed that amazing leadership and coaching and mentoring and things like that. So yeah, I knew what I wanted to work for myself. That was an absolute necessity, but exactly how I was going to transfer my skill set as a media sales account manager to, managing, leading, all of the admin skills that I had as well. I was working on that in my mind for my next step for probably about 12 months.
Yeah, it's quite interesting what we think it's going to be like and what it's like. The projections, like, I'm getting ready to go. I'm feeling like it's going to happen. I'm going to Google a few things to death and hope that that's enough.
Yeah.
Just trying to work out what it would look like. Where did it? So your idea was to help with businesses on land with leadership.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it started. I approached a creative agency to start with a bit of a brainstorm. So it was about a 5-hour think tank with them, and just kind of, I went blah and told them everything I've done, everything I can do. And they sort of started coming back at me with different ideas. And I was like, nah. Because I knew as soon as I heard it and as soon as I stumbled across what it was that I was going to do and make me happy, I knew that I would just be like, yeah, bingo, that's it. So
trusting your gut.
Trusting my gut, absolutely. My gut has never let me down in my entire life, ever. It's always been right.
Even with boys?
even with my friends' boys. I'm like, something about him, I don't know. And sure enough, I was right. So, yeah, they came back to me with sort of getting all of my skill sets and encompassing that into a company which I started. So, yeah, it was great.
Like I said at the beginning, though, you work in hospitality. Now, you are rare. I would say rare as rocking horse, whatever. Because obviously one of the pitches for the many, I'm not slagging anybody off, but one of the pitches of, especially the Purser course, you can use this in your next life. You can go work in a private house. You can go, work in a hotel. None of these things seem to happen. Now, I've spoken to hundreds of women, and you're the first that even works in hospitality.
Yes. Great. Love that.
Well, you are. Did you say, do I remember correctly, you worked in a private house at one point?
I was chief of staff for a family for about 6 months, I think it was, 6 or 7 months. And it just wasn't, the family weren't right for me. I didn't agree with their way of life.
But that job is quite demanding.
Massively.
Would you say more demanding than on board?
Way more. Crazy. Ridiculous. The list goes on. It was, in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I finally found a job that I can do I can do something of all of the things that I love to do. Whereas like as a purser, and that's how it started. I was purser for them, and then they sort of started to shift it into this chief of staff role because there was a bit of a gap in the middle. And it was amazing. I was like, oh my God, I can finally do all these little different things. Whereas some of the purser things, I was like, ugh, I hate this part of my job. I love this part of my job, but I really don't like that part. So I was loving it. And because I got given a laptop and they were like, we have nothing. So I'm like, okay, so what about this? Like nothing. So all standard operating procedures, protocols, you know, we had 56 staff, 12 security guards from the States, and, you know, visas and all sorts. So a lot of similar things from the purser role, but creating something from absolute scratch was really exciting to me. And we were going to take it in whatever direction we felt was right. So, but yeah, the cracks started to show, and I thought I wasn't going back to boats, to be completely honest with you. But after that, I sort of put my CV back out there and landed my last gig, which was, 7 Seas, 110 metre as purser, and launching them, or assisting them sort of in the last stages of the build and launching out of the EU and stuff, which was just amazing, and a really great team.
It's one of those things, you know, it's like working for, I know you're maybe the second that I know that worked for a private home on land, all saying quite the same thing, that it's just quite intense. So where on the boat, okay, we've got loosely hours of rest and stuff like that. That seems to just be blown out of the window completely with being on land. You know, if you're in a private house, you know, it's private. So private life doesn't stop. So therefore your job doesn't stop.
Yeah. And also we were in the UK, but I didn't have a work visa for the UK because it wasn't really to do with the UK. The family weren't British. So it was really tricky. And even if I sort of was like, well, I'm going to go to a union, they're like, but you can't work in this country. So what are you doing? So it's really
we're going to deport you instead.
I was like, I'm trapped. So that was hard. I mean, like I didn't feel like it needed to get to that point, but I was like, there were 15, 16-hour days constantly, and I would leave exhausted, and I would get to my bed. I was living on the property, get to bed, and my phone's like, ping, 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 ping. Where's this? Where's that? Oh my God, can you come back to the house? And I get back there and they're like, oh, I was just looking for a pen. Never mind. And I'm like, it's like, really? Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, you weren't meant to be there. So if there was murder, like, so at that point you're like,
yeah.
You're not paying me enough. You're not paying me enough. I don't care what you're paying me.
That was the tricky thing. It was a very, very attractive package, which made me think this is just too good to be true.
Well, it's good to try it out. But yeah, it's quite interesting, you know, the transition path that we're sold most of the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, no one seems to be taking it. You know, and I'd like to get to, you know, I'd like to probably discuss that in a bigger environment. Why that we decide that, you know, we've done it. I suppose you've done hospitality, you've done it at the highest level it can be done. Everything after that is a downgrade. You know, you can't even get into the hotel system anyway at a level that you'd probably have, you know, your ego wouldn't be crushed completely. But yeah, so how is the world of business? So like when you were starting, you know, obviously, you know, how long did it take you to get the first pay packet? I suppose that's the big question that people might want to know.
Yeah, everyone's like, how much are you earning? I've been really lucky. I've got a lot of contacts still from my media days, especially in this market. And a lot of it is, you know, I'm working my ass off, and I'm really proud of, you know, how strict I've been with myself. And it's really easy to be like, oh, you know what, I'm just not going to work today, or I'm going to start at midday or do this. I'm really strict. I start my day. Even if I'm having a full admin day at home, I get up, I shower, I change, I dress like I'm going to the office, because that's discipline for me. I've had just one of my first yeses this week. So I've got a lot in the pipeline. I'm waiting on a lot of answers back, and huge things in planning. So there's a lot on the horizon and a lot of big things, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, I had my first yes this week. So it's a big win for me. And just really, I think there's a lot happening in the new year, and yeah, but it's daunting because I'm paying myself. So if I don't do the work, I don't get paid. It's quite simple. And you've got to constantly have, even though you're working on some things, you've still got to prospect either every day or every week, because you have to have things in the pipeline. That pipeline, if you don't work on that, it will dry out eventually. It is formula. So, and some people think you can make a few calls, and it doesn't work like that. You could make 100 calls and you could get 10 meetings from those 100 calls. And then maybe out of those 10 meetings, one person says yes. So you really have to work hard, and you have to work tirelessly on, and not like work yourself to the bone and work every single hour of the day, because I don't believe in that. But you're constantly thinking about how to be creative. What's the next move? Where do I look next for my next prospect leads? And so that's the element that is really, it's a lot.
How do you deal with, like, when you start a new business, like the loneliness of it when you're on your own? You're your own motivator, your own cheerleader. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, your partner works away.
Yeah. I mean, look, you do have to. I've definitely had days, and real recently I've had days where I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. What am I doing? I'm so sad. Why doesn't anyone like me? And then you have other days where it's like, oh my God, I'm so amazing. I need to call all my friends and I need to tell them about how amazing I am. So, and it's that sales roller coaster. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll always be in a sales role. It's my company. It's my business. I am constantly trying to sell myself and our services. And if I'm not selling to clients, if I bring people in as team members to do that, then I've got to sell it to them, because I need them to have the same buy-in as me. So, and a sales roller coaster is just, it's a stupid, scary ride. It's so great, and it can suck so much too. So, and then I just, I'm working with other companies. I'm a consultant, so I'm hoping to be an extension of their teams, and, working with them helps keep me company. But if worst case scenario, I can take myself to a co-working space for the day and be distracted and do no work, really.
So come on then, give me your pitch. What is your company? What do you do? What do you, what are you all about? Go on, give it to me.
So the reason I started it is I'm a consumer myself, and there's a lot of frustration around particular customer experience levels and gaps in the market for, I mean, it's expensive to live in Australia. The hospitality staff get paid quite well. They do. So there's an element where they're not working for that tip. They're like, meh, I'm going to get paid. So some do it amazingly and others need to do better. So I started a business development consultancy, and we specialize in consumer experience. So we look at, how's your leadership team? How's that structured? What are your values? What are your standard operating procedures? What are some of the protocols? And, how is that framework making up a high-performing team? And therefore, how is your consumer experiencing your product? We've all stayed at hotels where we leave and we get an email, how was your stay? Give us a rating. And it's like, oh, can someone ask me that personally and hear what I have to say? So I work with businesses on scaling them. So if they want to expand and grow, and how to do that. And then management and leadership coaching, which is one-on-one stuff. I also have been working with some yacht crew looking to transition to land, and just a bit of support there, and brainstorming how they can best utilize their skill set, because some people don't really dig too deep. They kind of go top line stuff. So there's been some coaching and management leadership stuff there as well.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. It is. It's great. It's great. And everyone that hears about it's fascinated, and they say, oh my God, there's no one like you. And so, which is great for me because I don't have many competitors.
Well, it's the adaptability, that's taking what we've learned on board, but bringing it to a level which it deserves. And I think there's also a problem when women leave that, obviously rewriting your CV and stuff like that. How do you translate what we've experienced and what we've learned into a way an employer would understand? And I think that's also why a lot of women go for running their own business, because it's just too hard to try and get anybody to understand. I think your business is incredible because it marries the best Do you know what I mean? The best of our experiences on board, utilizes them, but utilizes them at the level that they deserve. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is rock hard to do. But maybe our hospitality is the only one it could really happen in, if you know what I mean, because that is really the core of all of our experiences on board.
Yeah.
Like I said, you are the only one. You know, you definitely don't have any competitors, because I don't know anybody else that has managed to translate it, I suppose. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And so hotels are probably my main target. Restaurants come in second, and then with scaling, I've had a couple of random, even tradies reaching out to sort of say, look, I really want to grow, I want to expand, I want two more locations, I want a bigger team, and they just don't really know where to start or how to do it or what to, even looking at performance plans for staff and things like that. So it's great, and I get to choose who I align myself with. So if you don't share what I believe in, or if you don't have the real love for looking after people and leading them well and being a great mentor, and that doesn't always mean, allowing your staff to do whatever they want, but being really passionate about, no, these are the protocols, this is what I believe in, and I'm sticking by that, then I get to align with great people that want the best.
That's right. I have to say, it's pretty amazing. I have to say.
Thank you.
Like I said, it's very unique, and it really is. Like I said, it's just a great story, because it is so hard. I remember doing my CV and just like, how do I summarize what I've done to people that just don't get it? Do you know what I mean? They don't. And kind of come out on a professional level at the other side. So it's great to hear. Obviously, we'll put all your details of your company in the bio so people can check you out. Obviously, you're in Australia. Are you planning to come to Europe anytime soon, or are you're quite happy?
Yes, there will be a European trip on the cards next year, I think. It's just working out the right time to do that. So maybe not before.
I would love to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you.
And we can maybe get into more of the nitty-gritty about your business and, obviously what's been going on. I think our listeners would greatly be interested in what you're doing.
It'd be great.
Yeah, so obviously we're going to need to wrap it up. Two things. Mm-hmm. So if you were talking to your younger self, or you're talking to a Stu in the laundry right now, 3 pieces of advice you would give said individual.
3 pieces of advice. Definitely save more money. I wish I saved more money. I drank a lot of it, that's for sure.
In Hop Store.
in the Hop Store. May they rest in peace.
The rosé's going to get you. It's going to get you.
I would say be careful. Just be careful with what you say. And that can be taken into so many different, be kind. You never know what you say and how someone hears that. And, you've got a reputation and you work, most likely working really hard to keep that, and you can undo it very quickly, and be kind to your purser.
Be kind to the purser. She's all alone. She's all alone in that little office. And nobody loved her. She's the one that's going to get you the flight home.
Exactly. She can choose the way she sends you home, or he, for that matter. No, but I also think a big one is to really stay true to yourself. Like, definitely don't let people tell you who you should be or how you should be. And if that boat's not right for you because you can't be yourself, then it's not the right boat for you. And there's a boat out there.
There's always another boat.
There's always another boat. And there's no perfect boat. There is no perfect boat.
There's perfect moments on boats.
Definitely.
You can have a season, a couple of trips, you know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe even a year, it's really that. One of the things I learned in New Zealand, a motto that I live by even now, this too will pass, yes. And boat life, you just need to recite that to yourself, because the highs will be so high and it'll be amazing. You'll be like with your best friends, your family, going to cool places. And then, it can literally, like you said, in a matter of hours, flip on its head and be the complete opposite. But it all changes, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always another
boat. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It really does.
Yeah, it's also a very good one. We should have a metaphor.
Like our own little booklet.
Please put comments in below if you've got your favourite saying to keep you motivated on board. And then finally, obviously, after those pearls of wisdom, you've got a wild story that you're out of NDA.
I have some really wild stories. They're not appropriate for a podcast.
I'll get those later, like when we start recording, because we've got an episode coming up where we're going to tell the anonymous stories. So the ones that you can't say in person, but you want to get out there. We've got a whole episode of stories.
Juicy.
Bonkers. I'm so excited for it. I really, really am. But two of them I've read and I'm like, that's not real. That's just not real. But apparently it is. So there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely.
But what's the one you can tell to camera?
I think the craziest, there's just so many of them. I think just the requests just make me laugh. Like polished blueberries, strawberries with no seeds, polished blueberries for breakfast, strawberries with no seeds. Yeah, well, there's actually a technique which I found out learning.
You're joking.
How do I polish? I squashed about 400 of them until I perfected.
Why polish one?
I don't know. They're really shiny. They don't look cloudy at all. They're beautiful, really polished. And I think actually most recently, which I had said to someone else, I was asked to take the sun away from someone sitting on the sun deck in the sun.
Wow, you're so capable.
So
how did you do that?
Well, I gave them a hat. I'm like, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry. You couldn't sit under the shade right next to you. No, take the sun away. I was like, well,
take the sun away. Interesting. I would have loved to see your face when you were asked it.
I was like, okay.
There are some questions that really push the boundaries of your hospo face.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was probably the best thing I learned in yachting. Well, it was very confronting because I realized how much I roll my eyes. So I had to really stop that. And that was perfecting my charter game face, I think.
How did you know that you do roll your eyes? Because that's going to be, I know, but like, how would you, because you don't know that you're doing it.
No, I had no idea. And I didn't realize how much I did it. And the whole crew and the captain was like, please stop rolling your eyes at me. I was like, oh, sorry. So yeah, I had to stop doing that.
My favorite, like on board, our boat, my death stare was apparently quite intense. One decky said, he was like, I think you might turn me to stone. He's like, there's just, or I used to do this thing where it probably sounds quite patronising, but when I used to get asked something stupid, I would relay it back to them out loud. And I was like, just to clarify, you'd like me to do such and such? Is that what you're saying to me? And all the deckies were like,
Yes, exactly
I also did that to guests sometimes as well.
I was just checking that you realised that sounds ridiculous.
Just to clarify, you want me to do this, dude? Yeah. Are you sure?
That is so funny. I love it.
But rolling your eyes, I don't know how you would even start. That's like me not frowning when somebody says something stupid. The only way I could get around it was have Botox, because you can't frown.
I think I just started staring. Maybe I looked like I was trying to do something on the toilet because I was just like, trying not to my
eyes. Fabulous. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really good. I hope all of our listeners have enjoyed it. We would definitely when you get to Europe, let me know. I don't think I'm going to get to Australia anytime soon, so it's going to have to be the other way around.
Depends on how bad this winter gets. You might change your mind.
I've said it in other podcasts. I would love to go back to Australia. I really, really would. I'd love Pearls to be, because obviously we've got the location application on it. So like wherever you are in the world, if you're in Australia, you can actually find the other crew members that are in Australia, which, you know, in an ideal world, everybody would just have it automatically, and then you can do meetups in Australia, and then I would have to fly, obviously, to Australia to go to these meetups. Universe.
Yes, hello.
That's what I would really like, but I don't know. We've got a little bit of way to go yet. I'm not going to say never. But when you do come over, please let us know.
I will.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
To all the listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, we have loads more for you to enjoy. If you're really interested in what Erin's been up to, we will put links to all of her bits and pieces in the bio. We do have a whole load of useful information, whether you're on board or off, in our app if you want to join the community. But failing that, we will see you again next time, or hear you again next time. I don't even know how to say that. Like, see you again. You know, anyway.
Let's chat to you soon.
Chat to you soon. Yeah, that's such an Aussie way to say it. Good day.
Good day.
Good day. And we'll see you next time.
Amazing. Bye.
Bye.